Hello there, welcome back to the channel. Now, this will be the first in what I hope will actually only ever be a fairly short series of videos. Each one is devoted to things that I bought that have either turned out to be silly impulse purchases or otherwise slightly unwise things for me to buy. The subject of this video is something that I only bought last weekend, because last weekend was the local Model Railway Club annual show. I live in Newbury, and the new Model Railway Club, which I remember, had the annual show, and I went there armed with some cash and came away with this. Now, at first sight, this looks like a model of a LMS 2P locomotive, and in fact that's exactly what it is. The first thing you'll see, and it's quite clear, is that it has two numbers, which is a bit odd. The number on the loco, 563, is correct for the very first of the LMS built Class 2Ps, which differed slightly from the Midland ones. I believe they had lower profile boiler mountings and things, the dome and the funnel and so forth. The number at the back, 13,000, is actually not a number for a 2P at all. It's a number for I think a huge Fowler crab, 260 loco, and that's because obviously this tender has been repurposed. The loco itself is a white metal kit running on a brass frame with some sort of motor now. I haven't been inside to identify what kind of motor is in there. As you can see, it's in a fairly nicely applied rendition of LMS / Midland sort of crimson livery. More lining on the tender than on the loco, that's obvious also. And at first glance you might think, well, this doesn't look like a bad purchase. The price was actually quite decent. It's we tested it at the exhibition. It turns out to be a runner. It runs quite smoothly. The level of detail is pretty good. So what on earth is wrong with it? Well, the problem is that basically this is a loco built or set up for EM gauge running, which is 18mm gauge, and of course all my stuff is 00, which is 16.5mm. So this will run, or will not run, on any of my tracks or with any of my kit. Any of my stock. So at the moment, this is the one and only piece of EM gauge equipment I have. I've got nowhere to run it. I've got no track to run it on. I've got no place to run it because unfortunately our Model Railway Club doesn't have an EM gauge layout. It'd be nice if it did, but I think there's only a fairly small number of people in the locality that do EM gauge, so it's not something that I think would be very popular among the club membership. So yeah, it is doomed to sit in a cupboard or in a display case for at least a little while, until I can work out quite what I'm going to do with it. What I think I'm going to do with it is try and find somewhere to run it, because as I said, I've seen it running. It runs quite sweetly, and there we go. I mean, just looking around the thing, it really is. I think it's a white metal kit. Certainly by judging by the sort of the feel and the weight of it, it's a white metal kit. And it's really been put together quite nicely. You can see it's got a hook and chain coupling there at the front. If you look at the windows and the cabs, they're basically flush glazed. They're very nicely done. All the handrails have been individually. It's got individual handrails. There's no sort of moulding into the white metal or whatever. On the whole, it's a very nicely built thing. Whoever built this did a rather nice job. If I separate the tender and the loco, which you can do, you can see there's a rather nice little fall plate there to cover the gap. There's a representation of the crew inside. As always, the fireman doing all the work and the driver sort of standing there looking a bit leisurely. There's even a half decent, you can't really can see it awfully well, but there's a half decent representation there of some back head detail. You know, whatever kit this was, it's quite a nice one. If I turn it over, which is quite hard to do, you can see the cogs and things there. That's the it's engaged presumably with the worm for the motor. I think the motor's mounted about there. And really, it's a very nicely put together piece of equipment. You know, whoever did this was quite skilled at it. And when you sort of when you have it's all lined up, it really does look the part. I mean, the only thing I might say about the Loco is that the lining or the there doesn't appear to be an awful lot of lining on the boiler bands and stuff, and I think that would be, in reality, that would be the kind of straw-coloured lining you see on the tender there. But I don't think really that the Loco suffers from the lack of lining, and I could probably also try and add it later if I really wanted to. But for the moment, I'm quite happy to leave it as it is. The tender, which as I say is, when you pick it up, it's actually very heavy because there's quite a lot of weight underneath, and I'm trying to work out whether this is actually there for ballast, or whether it's there to, if possibly it was used on a layout with some sort of track circuiting or some sort of micro switches or something, and this is actually a magnet. I need to get a magnet out and test it. But of course, this tender, more or less in its entirety, comes from a Bachmann model, which they made a few years ago. So I can only guess that at some point, probably when it was first built, this had a different tender, and then a bit later along, Bachmann have announced their crab, and whoever built or owned this model thought, oh, that tender there behind the Bachmann Loco looks a nicer tender than is behind it currently. So I think it's had a new tender at some point, and clearly whoever had it had not got round to repainting the number, or obliterating the number, removing it. Presumably that'll be removed, and some sort of LMS insignia or logo will go on there. But they did get as far as I say, adding in a weight, adding in a new connection point there, and of course adding a hook and chain to the back there, and of course re-gauging it for EM gauge. So someone's clearly done some work on this tender. You know, it's not completely stock. So yeah, there we go. Really a very nice piece of kit. I'm very glad I bought it. The price I paid for it I thought was very reasonable. It was in the trader who had a sort of a complete tray of these things, not all of Midland 2Ps or LMS 2Ps. So there was one there of a LSWR Loco, which I was also quite tempted to buy, but I thought I'd just get the one because, frankly, if I had my time again, I might not get a EM gauge Loco because it really is at the moment going to sit there and do nothing. But for the moment, there we go. Impulse buy number 1. Okay, that's all from me. Thanks for listening. Cheers. Take care. Hello, me again. Just before I go, one thing occurred to me to say was that if anyone watches this video and happens to know anything of the history of this particular logo, not of the class, but of this actual model, you know, maybe it's a friend of yours who used to own it and sold it on or something, please do get in touch. I'd be fascinated to know where this came from. The trader from who I bought it really couldn't tell me much, but part of the fact that he bought it as a job lot. I'm presuming it might have come from a legacy of someone that might have died. But if you've ever seen this loco before, or if you've seen it running, do get in touch. I'd be fascinated to know. All right then, thanks a lot. Cheers. Bye.